Most people think horror is about blood, monsters, or screams in the dark. But that's not the kind of fear that stays with you. Real fear is quiet. It hides in things you can't explain. A phone that rings once and never again. Footsteps upstairs when you live alone. A reflection that moves slightly after you've stopped. Tonight, I won't try to scare you. I'll simply share what others have witnessed. 15 true stories. 15 moments where the world twisted, just slightly, into something colder, darker, and far more alive than it should have been. These aren't tales for thrill seekers. They're for the ones who've already felt it. The ones who know something is out there, even if they can't say what. So if you've ever felt watched without reason, if you've ever woken up at 3 a.m. without knowing why, stay right here. You might just find out you're not imagining it. A stranger stepped out from the shadowed trail behind our house, her voice soft and sweet as she called, "Mia, Noah, come play at my place." She knew our names, names we'd never shared, and her smile was unnervingly perfect, like a mask, hiding something darker. My stomach twisted with dread as a chill ran down my spine. Would you trust a stranger who knows too much? That summer day in our quiet rural town turned into a chilling memory I can't shake, a moment that would haunt me for years to come. I was about 10, playing in the yard with my cousin Noah, same age, in a sleepy countryside where nothing ever happened. The air was thick with the scent of wildflowers, the sun blazing overhead, casting long shadows across the grass as we chased each other in a carefree game of tag. That's when she appeared, stepping out from the trail, her outdated dress swaying as if caught in a breeze that wasn't there. Her words were honey-sweet, but her eyes told a different story. Cold, calculating, like she was sizing us up for something we couldn't understand. Noah's hand trembled in mine, his fear echoing my own as we stood frozen, the warmth of the day turning icy. The laughter of our game died in our throats, replaced by a growing dread that something was terribly wrong. That moment marked the beginning of a mystery I still can't solve, a question that lingers in the back of my mind. Who was this woman and why did she target us on that fateful day? The stillness of the countryside, once a comforting backdrop to our childhood, now felt like a stage for something far more sinister, something we couldn't yet name but could feel in the air around us, a tension that hung heavy as we stood there, staring at the stranger who had invaded our safe little world with her unsettling presence. Our yard had always been a sanctuary, a sprawling patch of green where Noah and I spent countless summer days, the golden fields stretching out to meet the woods in the distance, a place where we felt safe and free to let our imaginations run wild. That afternoon, we were deep in a game of tag, darting through the tall grass, our shouts echoing through the humid air, the sun warm on our faces as we laughed without a care in the world, oblivious to the danger that was about to step into our lives. That's when the woman appeared, her presence slicing through our joy like a cold wind, shattering the peace of our little world with an eerie calm that made my skin crawl. Her clothes were odd, long, flowy, like something from decades ago, and her voice was so smooth it almost lulled us into trusting her. She introduced herself as a new neighbor, saying she had toys and games we'd love, inviting us to her house. Down the road, her tone was warm, almost hypnotic, but there was an edge to it, a calculated rhythm that felt rehearsed, like she'd said these words many times before to other children. I noticed her hands, pale, bony, with dirt smudged under her nails as if she'd been digging in the earth, and her shoes, old and scuffed, caked with mud from the trail, as she gestured down the path, her smile never faltering, her eyes locked on us with an intensity that made my heart race. Noah's laughter died in his throat, his eyes wide with fear, and I felt a cold sweat break out on my skin, a prickle of unease that I couldn't shake, a feeling that something was terribly wrong. Her words were so sweet, so practiced, but something felt off. Her insistence felt forced, her smile too wide, as if she was hiding something sinister behind it, something that made my instincts scream to run. We didn't wait for her to finish her invitation. Noah and I turned and ran, our sneakers thudding against the hard-packed dirt, kicking up clouds of dust as we sprinted toward the house, the woman's voice trailing after us like a ghostly hum, her words fading into the hot summer air. But the echo of her tone lingered in my ears, chilling me to the bone. We burst through the door, slamming it shut so hard the hinges rattled, the sound echoing through the small farmhouse as we collapsed against the wall, breathless and trembling, our hearts pounding in our chests. We poured out the story to Mom in a frantic rush, our voices overlapping in panic, each of us trying to make sense of the fear that gripped us, the terror that had taken hold in a matter of moments. She listened, frowning, then went outside to check, but came back saying no one was there. The yard was empty, the trail stretching into the woods as silent as a graveyard. Not a single footprint or sign of the woman who had stood there just moments before, as if she'd vanished into thin air. Mom's face tightened, her brow furrowing with worry as she asked us to describe her again. The strange dress that looked like it belonged in a museum, the too sweet voice that sent shivers down our spines, the way she knew our names without ever telling her, a detail that made Mom's eyes widen with alarm. She picked up the old rotary phone on the kitchen counter and called Mrs. Carter, our nearest neighbor who lived a mile down the road, her voice low and tense as she asked if anyone had seen a new family in the area, but no one had heard of anyone moving in, confirming our worst fears that something was terribly wrong. The air in the house grew heavy, the walls seeming to press in around us, as the afternoon sun dipped low on the horizon, casting eerie shadows across the wooden floor, shadows that seemed to dance with the fear that now lived inside us. The air in the house grew heavy, the walls seeming to press in around us, as the afternoon sun dipped low on the horizon, casting eerie shadows across the wooden floor, shadows that seemed to dance with the fear that now lived inside us. That night, Mom sat us down at the kitchen table, her hands gripping ours so tightly her knuckles turned white, and warned us to never go with strangers, her voice trembling with a fear I'd never heard before, a fear that mirrored our own. The countryside's quiet, once a soothing lullaby that had lulled us to sleep every night, now felt like a trap, hiding something sinister just beyond the edge of our vision, something we couldn't name but could feel in our bones. The days that followed were marked by a quiet, creeping unease that settled over us like a heavy fog, a weight that we couldn't shake no matter how hard we tried. Noah and I stopped playing near the trail, confining ourselves to the porch, where the creak of the wooden boards felt safer than the open yard, where we could keep the door in sight at all times, our eyes darting nervously toward the woods. The trail itself seemed to change, its shadows growing deeper, its silence heavier, as if it held a secret we weren't meant to uncover, a secret that whispered danger with every rustle of leaves in the wind. A week later, we overheard Mom talking to a friend about kids going missing in nearby towns. There was no new neighbor, no trace of the woman, and the rumors of missing kids only grew. My heart pounded in my chest as I thought of the woman's voice, her smile, the way she'd said our names like she'd known us forever, her words echoing in my mind like a haunting melody, a melody that now carried the weight of terror. We never saw her again, but the fear lingered, a dark stain on our childhood that refused to fade, a shadow that followed us into every game, every quiet moment. The rain hit like a wall, drenching me to the bone, each drop a needle in the dark. It was 11 p.m., 2010, and I was trudging through a small Oregon town, alone, my hoodie useless against the storm. My name's Ryan, and that night, a woman stepped out of the shadows, her voice cutting through the downpour. "Come to my house, it's just a short walk." Her smile was too wide, her eyes too eager, and my gut twisted. I was 22, soaked, and exhausted from a late shift, but something about her felt wrong. The rain was blinding, blurring the streets, making every step a gamble. She urged me again. "It's so close, you'll be dry in no time." I hesitated, cold seeping into my bones, but her insistence, her need, set off alarms. Was she helping? Or leading me somewhere I wouldn't come back from? The storm roared and I had to choose. Trust her or face the night alone. The town was a speck, a cluster of dim streetlights drowned by the rain. I'd been walking home from the diner where I bussed tables a mile from my apartment when the sky opened up. My phone was dead, no cars passed, and the streets were empty, except for her. She wore a raincoat, her face half hidden, but her voice was sharp, almost desperate. The wind howled, carrying whispers of stories I'd heard, people vanishing, lured by strangers in storms. My hands shook, not just from the cold, but from the growing certainty that I was vulnerable, exposed. I needed shelter, but her offer felt like a trap. The rain stung my eyes, and her shadow loomed closer, waiting for my answer. I took a step back, heart pounding, knowing one wrong move could change everything. The rain was a relentless roar, turning the streets into rivers, my sneakers sloshing with every step. I could barely see through the downpour. The town's lights blurred into smears, each breath a battle against the cold. The woman, Clara, walked ahead, her raincoat a dark smudge in the storm. She kept saying, "My house is just up the road." So close. Her voice bright, almost manic, cutting through the wind. I followed, shivering, my hoodie clinging like ice to my skin, but doubt gnawed at me. I was 22, alone and far from the diner's warmth. Clara's urgency felt off, too eager, too rehearsed. I'd heard whispers at work, people disappearing on nights like this, lured by promises of safety. My gut screamed to turn back, but the storm was brutal, and I was desperate. The town was small, a grid of old houses and shuttered shops, now ghostly in the rain. I knew these streets, or thought I did, but Clara led me down an unfamiliar alley. The pavement cracked, the walls looming. Her pace quickened, her head bent against the storm, and I struggled to keep up, my legs heavy, my breath ragged. "Almost there," she called, but the alley stretched on. No houses in sight, just shadows and the hiss of rain. My heart pounded, a warning I couldn't ignore. I'd grown up here, knew every shortcut, but this path felt wrong, like we were leaving the town behind. A memory flashed. My boss at the diner, warning about strangers in storms, about folks who aren't what they seem. I pushed it down, telling myself I was paranoid, but Clara's smile, glimpsed in a flicker of streetlight, was too sharp, too hungry. I checked my pockets, keys, a dead phone, no weapon. The wind carried a faint creak, maybe a loose shutter, but it made my skin crawl. Clara glanced back, her eyes glinting, and said, "Come on, it's just a little further." I nodded, but my steps slowed, every instinct screaming to run. The rain stung my face, the cold biting deeper. But fear was colder, sharper. We turned another corner, the alley narrowing, the town's lights fading. Where was she taking me? Was her house real, or was I walking into something I'd never walk out of? The alley was a tunnel, the rain a deafening curtain, blurring everything, but Clara's silhouette ahead. She led me through twists and turns, her voice insistent. It's so close now, just around the corner. But the corners kept coming, each one darker, each one further from the town I knew. My legs burned, my breath a ragged gasp, the cold sinking into my bones. We were in a maze of back streets, the houses gone, replaced by empty lots and rusted fences. I stopped, water streaming down my face, my heart slamming against my ribs. "Where are we?" I demanded, my voice shaky. Clara turned, her smile faltering, her eyes too bright in the dim light. "Almost there," she said, but her tone was sharp, desperate. I took a step back, my sneakers slipping on the wet pavement, and realized this wasn't right. This wasn't safe. The rain pounded, but my fear was louder, a siren in my head. I'd followed her for what? 15 minutes, 20? It felt like hours, and we were nowhere near a house. The town's lights were gone, the streets unfamiliar, the air heavy with something worse than cold. Clara stepped closer, her hand outstretched, saying, "Come on, it's just up ahead." But her voice cracked, and I saw it. A flicker of panic in her eyes, like she needed me to keep going. My mind raced. I'd heard stories, people lured into alleys, robbed, or worse. My boss's warning echoed, "Don't trust anyone in a storm." I scanned the alley. No lights, no people, just shadows and rain. A faint clatter came from behind, maybe a can in the wind, but it spiked my pulse. Was someone else there? Or was it just us, and that was worse? I backed away, my voice firm. "I'm going back." Clara's face changed, her smile gone, her eyes narrowing. "You'll get sick out here," she snapped, stepping closer. I turned, my sneakers splashing, and ran, the rain swallowing my footsteps. She called after me, her voice fading. "You're making a mistake." But I didn't stop, didn't look back, my lungs burning as I retraced the alleys, praying I'd find the main road. The town's lights flickered ahead, a lifeline, and I burst onto a familiar street, gasping, soaked, alive. I glanced back. No Clara, no shadow, just the storm. My apartment was a half-mile away, and I ran the whole way, the rain my only companion. I locked the door, my hands shaking, and sank to the floor, the weight of what I'd escaped sinking. And Clara was gone, but her voice lingered. A warning I couldn't unhear. I didn't sleep that night, Clara's voice echoing, her eyes haunting me. I told my coworker Jess the next day, my hands still shaky. She went pale, saying she'd heard stories of a woman luring people into empty lots on stormy nights. My stomach dropped. The diner buzzed with whispers, missing hikers, late night, attacks, a woman who helps but leads you nowhere. Was Clara one of them? I couldn't shake the thought that I'd dodged something dark, something I'd never fully understand. Jess urged me to call the police, but what could I say? A woman offered shelter and I ran? I kept quiet, but the fear stayed, a shadow in my mind. Now I avoid walking home in storms. I looked up that town last year, still small, still quiet, but the stories linger. A local blog mentioned a woman, middle-aged, linked to unsolved cases, always seen in rain, always gone by morning. No name, no proof, just rumors. I moved away, but the memory follows me, sharp as the rain that night. Was Clara a predator, a lost soul, or just a misunderstanding amplified by fear? I don't know. Jess won't bring it up, and I don't ask. All I know is I ran, and I'm still here. If you're caught in a storm and a stranger offers help, think twice. Trust your gut and don't follow. Some paths don't lead home. I woke to the sound of my name whispered in the dark, sharp and cold, like a blade slicing through silence. The room was pitch black, but I felt it. A presence, inches away, watching me. I fumbled for the light, heart pounding, and found my girlfriend's house empty. But the mirror across the room was cracked, a spiderweb of fractures that hadn't been there when I went to sleep. My name's Noah Sullivan, and in the summer of 2018 I was 22, head over heels for my girlfriend, Ava Harper. She invited me to spend a week at her family's home in a sleepy Ohio town, a chance to meet her parents and play house. I was thrilled. Small town charm, home-cooked meals, no big deal. But the moment I crossed the threshold of their Victorian-era home, a strange unease hit me. The air was heavy, like the house was holding its breath. At night I heard odd noises, footsteps creaking in the hallway, faint tapping from the basement. I laughed it off, blaming old pipes, but the sounds weren't random. They had purpose, like someone was pacing, waiting. Ava's parents, Ellen and Tom, were welcoming, but their smiles felt forced, their eyes darting to the basement door whenever it creaked. The house itself was a maze of narrow halls and locked rooms, its wallpaper peeling like skin. By the second day I was exhausted, my head pounding, my dreams filled with shadows. I told Ava, but she shrugged. "Old houses are weird," she said, kissing my cheek. I wanted to believe her, but that unease grew, a gnawing dread that something in the house didn't want me there. The first night, I noticed small things. A book I'd left on the nightstand now on the floor, a chair in the living room slightly askew. I chalked it up to forgetfulness, but the noises kept coming, louder, closer. The basement door, always locked, rattled in its frame like something was trying to get out. I asked Ava's dad about it, but he just grunted, "Stay out of there." The house wasn't just old, it was alive, and it was watching me. The third night, things escalated. I woke to a door creaking open downstairs, the sound sharp in the silence. I checked the guest room door, locked as always. But the basement door was ajar, a sliver of darkness spilling out. My pulse raced. I'd seen Tom lock it that evening, double-checking the bolt. I crept downstairs, flashlight in hand, and found books scattered on the living room floor, pages torn as if someone had thrown them in rage. The chair was tipped over, its legs pointing at the basement like an accusation. I called for Ava, but she was fast asleep. The noises came again. Slow, deliberate footsteps from the basement echoing up the stairs. I froze, the beam of my flashlight shaking. The air turned cold, my breath visible, and I felt dizzy, my vision blurring, like the house was draining me. I slammed the basement door shut, heart hammering, but the lock wouldn't catch. The footsteps stopped, replaced by a low, guttural hum, like a voice trapped in the walls. I ran back to bed, pulling the covers over my head. But the nightmares. Dark figures circling me, whispering my name. The next morning I was a wreck, pale, shaky, my energy sapped. Ava noticed, but when I told her about the door and books, she frowned. "You're just stressed, Noah," she said. "This house is fine." Her parents agreed, their eyes avoiding mine. I wanted to scream. No one believed me, but I knew it wasn't my imagination. That night I set my phone to record, hoping to catch the sounds. At 3 a.m., the door creaked open again and my phone captured it. A faint, raspy whisper saying, "Leave." But when I played it for Ava, she heard nothing, her face pale. "Maybe it's broken," she muttered, but I saw fear in her eyes. I started noticing more. My keys vanished, then reappeared in the basement stairwell. A photo frame fell, its glass shattering. The picture inside showing a woman I didn't recognize, her eyes scratched out. The house was toying with me and I was falling apart. I couldn't take it anymore. The house was breaking me, and Ava's denial only made it worse. I confronted her in the kitchen, showing her the shattered photo frame. "What's going on here?" I demanded. She hesitated, then sighed. "It's just an old house, Noah. You're overreacting." But her hands shook and I knew she was lying. That afternoon I snuck into the basement, the air thick with dust and something sour. Among the junk I found a locked box, its surface etched with strange symbols. I pried it open, revealing a bundle of letters, yellowed and brittle. The letters were from a woman named Margaret, dated 1953, begging her husband to leave the house. "It's alive," she wrote. "It takes pieces of us." The last letter mentioned a ritual gone wrong, something about binding a spirit that never left. My stomach dropped. I was exhausted, plagued by nightmares, and now I knew why. The house was doing this to me, feeding on my fear, my energy. I showed Ava the letters, but she brushed it off. "Old stories," she said, but her voice cracked. I felt alone, trapped in a house that hated me. That night, the house fought back. Footsteps thundered from the basement, shaking the floors. A door slammed open, and I heard my name, not whispered, but screamed. From the dark, I grabbed Ava, but she was dazed, her eyes glassy like the house had her too. The lights flickered and I saw it, a shadow, tall and twisted, moving up the stairs. It wasn't human, its edges blurring like smoke. I dragged Ava to the car, but the keys were gone, reappearing on the basement steps. The house wouldn't let us leave. I called Tom, begging for answers. He went quiet, then admitted the house had problems. Margaret, his aunt, had died here. Her death ruled a suicide, but rumors said she'd been driven mad. "Don't go in the basement," he warned. Too late. The house was awake and it wanted me. We had to end it. I found a note in Margaret's letters about breaking the binding, a ritual using salt and fire. At midnight, Ava and I poured a salt circle in the living room, candles flickering as the footsteps grew louder. Now a stampede from the basement. The shadow appeared, its form solidifying. A woman's face twisted in rage. Margaret, or what was left of her. It screamed my name, the windows rattling, and I felt my strength fading, my knees buckling. Ava chanted the words from the letters, her voice shaking as I lit the candles. The house fought back. Doors slammed, furniture flew, and the shadow lunged, its touch like ice. I threw salt at it, and it recoiled, shrieking. We burned the letters, the flames roaring and the shadow dissolved, the house falling silent. But I was still weak, haunted by nightmares even after we left. Ava's parents insisted it was our imagination, but Ava knew better. She broke up with me a month later, unable to look at me without seeing that night. Years later, I researched the house. It had a history, deaths, disappearances, all tied to the basement. Some said Margaret had summoned something, a spirit that claimed the house and everyone in it. I still feel it sometimes, a cold breath on my neck, a whisper in the dark. If you're ever in a house that feels wrong, get out before it takes you. What was in that basement? Share your story in the comments and subscribe for more tales that'll chill your bones. The first time I heard my name whispered in room 204, I thought I was losing my mind. But the truth was far worse. I'm Claire, a new teacher at Willow Creek High, and in 2023 I stepped into a classroom that wasn't just haunted, it was alive. Every time I stepped into room 204, I'd get dizzy, my head spinning like I was falling. My nerves felt raw, like something was pressing on my mind. What I thought was stress became a nightmare that's never left me. Willow Creek was an old school, its halls creaking with history. I was thrilled to land my first teaching job, but room 204 felt wrong from day one. There was this heavy pressure in the air, like the room itself was pushing me out. The air was thick, the walls stained with time. and the windows seemed to watch me. My students noticed it too. The students were weird about it too. They'd avoid the seats near the window, saying it felt creepy, their eyes darting to the glass. I brushed it off. New job jitters, I told myself. But then I heard it. I started hearing whispers, faint, like voices just out of reach. But no one else seemed to notice. They came from nowhere, calling my name, soft but insistent. My skin crawled, my vision blurred. This wasn't imagination. Something in that room knew me, and it wanted my attention. I should have walked away, but I stayed, drawn to the mystery. What was in room 204? Why did it feel like it was waiting? That classroom would pull me into a darkness I couldn't escape. A secret that might still be calling my name. Teaching in room 204 became a daily battle. Every time I stepped into room 204, I'd get dizzy, my head spinning like I was falling. My nerves felt raw, like something was pressing on my mind. My hands shook writing on the board. My thoughts scattered. I started hearing whispers, faint, like voices just out of reach. But no one else seemed to notice, though sometimes a student would pause, eyes wide, as if they'd heard it too. The whispers grew clearer, forming words. Stay. Listen. The room itself seemed to fight me. There was this heavy pressure in the air, like the room itself was pushing me out, a weight that made breathing hard. The temperature plummeted. Without warning, my breath visible in the morning light. The students were weird about it too. They'd avoid the seats near the window, saying it felt creepy, some whispering about a shadow that moved outside. I checked once. Nothing, but empty grass, yet my skin prickled. One day a student, Mia, lingered after class. "Miss, don't stay here alone," she said, her voice trembling. "It doesn't like teachers." Her words chilled me. That afternoon I saw it. Some kids swore they saw a shadow outside the window, but when I looked, nothing was there. But as I turned away, the glass rattled, a low hum vibrating through the walls. My heart raced. This wasn't stress, this was something else. Something that knew I was there. I started avoiding room 204 after hours, but the whispers followed me into the halls, faint but relentless. The room wasn't just a place, it was a presence, and it was waking up. I had to know why, even if it meant facing whatever was waiting. Desperate for answers, I dug into the school's past. A veteran teacher, Mr. Hayes, pulled me aside one day. "You're teaching in 204, aren't you?" His face was grim. I found out a student had taken their life in that room years ago. The school sealed it off for a while after. Her name was Lily, a quiet girl who'd been bullied until she broke. The school hushed it up, but room 204 was never the same. The whispers now made sense, but they didn't stop. I started hearing whispers, faint, like voices just out of reach, but no one else seemed to notice. And sometimes they called Lily instead of my name. Some kids swore they saw a shadow outside the window, but when I looked, nothing was there. Yet the air grew heavier, the hum louder. One morning, I found my lesson plans scattered on the floor, pages torn, as if someone, or something, had been there. The students grew more restless. One boy, Ethan, refused to enter, claiming he saw a girl in the window who wasn't there. The students were weird about it too. They'd avoid the seats near the window, saying it felt creepy. I tried to stay calm, but every time I stepped to room 204, I'd get dizzy, my head spinning like I was falling. My nerves felt raw, and now my vision blurred, shapes moving in my peripheral. I was unraveling, and room 204 was the cause. I started locking the door after class, but the hum persisted, vibrating through my bones. Lily's story wasn't just history. It was alive in that room, and it wanted something from me. I had to confront it, or it would never let me go. I couldn't take it anymore. One evening I stayed late, determined to face whatever haunted room 204. The school was empty, the halls silent. But there was this heavy pressure in the air, like the room itself was pushing me out. I unlocked the door, my hands shaking. Every time I stepped into room 204, I'd get dizzy, my head spinning like I was falling. My nerves felt raw and the whispers surged, now a chorus. Stay, you're mine. The room was freezing, the windows fogged despite the warm night. I called out, Lily, if you're here, show yourself. The hum exploded, the lights flickering. Then I saw her, a girl in the corner, pale, her eyes hollow, her form flickering like a bad signal. Some kids swore they saw a shadow outside the window, but when I looked, nothing was there. But now she was inside, stepping toward me, her voice a hiss. You shouldn't have come. I stumbled back, knocking over a desk. The door slammed shut, locking me in. The hum became a scream, my vision swimming. I shouted, I'm leaving, and threw the door open, running down the hall. Even after I got out of that room, I felt like something followed me, like it wasn't done with me. The whispers chased me, echoing my name. I didn't stop until I reached my car, my heart pounding. Room 204 wasn't just haunted. It was a trap, and I'd barely escaped. The next day, I begged to switch classrooms. The principal agreed, no questions asked, as if she knew. But the marks were there, scratches on my bag, faint but deliberate, like something had clawed at me in the dark. Lily wasn't gone, and neither was her hold on me. I never taught in room 204 again, but it followed me. Nightmares came. Lily's face, her hollow eyes, the whispers calling my name. Even after I got out of that room, I felt like something followed me, like it wasn't done with me, a weight that lingered in every shadow. I'm in a new school now, but I can't escape. That classroom marked me, and I fear it's not finished. I dug deeper into Willow Creek's secrets. Lily wasn't the only tragedy. Other students had reported accidents in room 204, hushed up by the school. Locals whispered of a curse, a darkness tied to the land itself. Last month, I found an old class photo from Lily's year. In the back, her face was blurred, but next to her was a shadow, tall and formless, watching. My heart stopped. Was it still there? I'm not saying it's a ghost or a demon. But room 204 isn't safe. I found out a student had taken their life in that room years ago. The school sealed it off for a while after, and something stayed behind. If you ever teach at Willow Creek, avoid room 204. Don't stay late, don't listen to the whispers. Whatever's there, it's still waiting, and it knows your name. What was it? A lost soul? A curse? Or something older, rooted in that room's walls? Drop your thoughts below. If you felt a classroom turn against you, I need to know. Because every night I hear those whispers, and I'm terrified they're calling me back. The chalkboard in room 204 shimmered, like it was breathing, its surface rippling under the fluorescent lights. I blinked, heart racing, but the ripples didn't stop. They pulsed, forming shapes, faces, eyes that stared back. I was alone, grading papers after hours, but I wasn't. Something was in that room with me, and it wasn't human. That was the night I learned room 204 wasn't just a classroom. It was a trap. I'm Sarah, 34, a history teacher at a small-town high school in upstate New York. For 2 years, room 204 gave me the creeps. Books sliding off desks, whispers. In empty corners, a feeling like someone was standing right behind me. I thought I was losing it. Stress from long hours until I confided in my colleagues. They'd felt it too, every teacher who'd ever taught there. Room 204 wasn't just haunted. It was alive, and it had a history that wouldn't stay buried. It started small. My first week in 204. A pen rolled off my desk, then stopped mid-air before hitting the floor. I laughed it off. Drafty old building, right? But then chairs scraped at night when the school was locked. Voices murmured, too soft to understand, echoing from the walls. I'd turn, expecting a student, but the room was empty. The air felt heavy, like it was watching me. I started avoiding 204 after hours, grading in the lounge instead. But the kids noticed too. Quiet, fidgety, like they felt it but didn't dare say it. One night I stayed late, determined to face it. That's when the chalkboard moved, its ripples pulling me in, like it wanted me to see something. I froze, breath shallow as the air grew cold, thick with that watched feeling. A whisper brushed my ear. Stay. I bolted, heart hammering, vowing never to be alone in 214 again. But I couldn't quit. I needed answers. So I asked Margaret, a veteran teacher, if she'd ever felt anything. Her face paled. You're not imagining it, she said. Nobody lasts long in that room. That was just the beginning. Room 204 wasn't done with me, or any of us. Margaret's words hung in the air like a curse. Nobody lasts long in 204. We were in the teacher's lounge, coffee cups trembling in our hands. I'd spilled my story, the whispers, the moving objects, that chalkboard nightmare. Margaret admitted she'd felt it too, back when she taught in 204 a decade ago. Chairs would shift, papers would vanish. A voice would whisper her name when she was alone. She thought she was cracking until she switched rooms. It's not you, she said. It's the room. I pushed for more, desperate for proof I wasn't crazy. Margaret hesitated, then called over two other teachers, Claire and Tom, both veterans. Claire's eyes darkened. 204. I'd get dizzy, hear footsteps behind me even when the door was locked. Tom nodded. Felt like someone was breathing down my neck. Once I saw a shadow in the window, inside, not out. Every teacher who'd used 204 had a story, and none stayed longer than a year. My skin crawled. This wasn't my imagination. But why 204? Margaret lowered her voice. Years ago, a student took their own life in that room. The school hushed it up, repainted the walls, moved on, but the room didn't. It's like she's still there, Margaret said, or something is. I shivered, picturing that chalkboard, those eyes. Was it her or something darker using her pain? I started asking students, subtly. One girl, Lily, whispered, I hate 214, it feels wrong. Another swore her notebook flipped open during a test, pages scribbled with words she didn't write. The more I learned, the heavier 204 felt. I'd walk in and the air would press against me, like it was pushing me out or pulling me in. The whispers grew louder, sometimes forming words. Stay, see, mine. I'd check the vents, the windows. Nothing. But the kids were jumpy, dropping pencils, glancing at corners. I couldn't ignore it anymore. Room 204 wasn't just a classroom. It was a presence, alive, aware, and it knew we were talking about. I wanted to quit, but I couldn't. Not yet. I needed to know what it wanted and why it wouldn't let us go. I couldn't stop thinking about 204. It invaded my dreams. Chalkboards pulsing, shadows whispering, eyes in the dark. I'd wake up sweating, checking my windows, half expecting to see that room's presence outside. The confirmation from my colleagues wasn't a relief. It was a cage. Knowing I wasn't imagining it made it worse. Room 204 was real, and it was targeting us. I had to know why, even if it meant facing it head-on. I started researching the school's history, digging through old yearbooks in the library's dusty basement. The suicide story checked out. 1998, a girl named Anna, 16, found in 204 after hours. The records were vague, citing personal issues, but a yellowed newspaper clipping hinted at bullying, a cover-up. Anna's photo stared back at me, her eyes hauntingly familiar. like those on the chalkboard. Was she trapped there, lashing out? Or had her death opened a door to something else? I asked Margaret for more. She shared rumors. Teachers quitting after breakdowns, students refusing to enter 204, even janitors avoiding it at night. One custodian claimed he saw a girl's reflection in the window, but no one was there. I checked X, hoping for local posts mentioned 204, calling it cursed with stories of cold spots, flickering lights, and voices. One user swore they saw a figure in 214 during a reunion, standing where Anna died. My stomach churned. This wasn't just a ghost story, it was a pattern. I went back to 204, alone, at dusk. The room felt alive, the air thick, buzzing. A book fell off a shelf, landing open to a page with Anna's name scrawled in the margin. My breath caught. The whispers started. Stay. See. Mine. Louder, circling me. I snapped a photo of the chalkboard. Later it showed faint outlines like faces. I ran, vowing to never return alone. But I couldn't leave. The room had me, just like it had Anna, Margaret, everyone. It wasn't just haunted. It was hungry. And we were its prey. I needed answers, but every step deeper felt like a step towards something I couldn't come back from. I couldn't teach in 204 without shaking. Every creak, every shadow, felt like it was closing in. The room's presence grew stronger. The whispers now a chorus, sometimes screaming, "Stay," when I reached the door. Students stopped coming. Lily's parents pulled her out, citing bad vibes. I wasn't alone anymore. The whole school felt it. The principal, a skeptic, brushed it off as old building quirks, but even he avoided 204. I knew better. This wasn't imagination, it was war. I rallied Margaret, Claire, and Tom. We met after hours comparing notes. Claire shared a video. Her phone, left recording in 204, captured a desk moving an inch. No one near. Tom found a 2005 log from a janitor. Girl's voice in 204, 3 a.m., doors locked. Margaret revealed she'd once seen Anna's name carved into her podium, erased the next day. Every story confirmed it. 204 wasn't letting go. We weren't just teachers. We were witnesses to something ancient, angry, tied to Anna's death. I went public, posting on X about 204, anonymized to protect my job. The response was overwhelming. Alumni, parents, even a former principal, all with stories. One woman, class of '99, said Anna was her friend, tormented by bullies in 204 before she died. Another claimed the room was built over an old cemetery, disturbed in the 50s. A local historian DM'd me, warning that 204's site had bad energy, linked to unexplained deaths long before the school. My head spun. Was Anna a victim, a vessel, or both? We tried to cleanse 204, sage, prayers, anything. It backfired. Books flew off shelves, lights flickered, and a scream, not ours, echoed. We fled, vowing to fight another way. I started carrying a recorder, catching snippets of whispers. See? Me stay. The school board ignored us, threatening our jobs, but we couldn't stop. Room 204 was a wound, bleeding into our lives, and we were its keepers now. Every night I'd check my photos, seeing new faces in the chalkboard's grain. What did it want? Revenge? Release? Or something worse? I'm still teaching, but 204's grip is tightening. I see Anna's face in my dreams, hear her whispers in my car, feel her eyes in every shadow. The room's not just haunted, it's alive, feeding on us, growing stronger with every story we uncover. We're not imagining it, we're its prisoners. Margaret retired, Claire's on leave. Tom's quiet now, but I can't quit. Room 204 won't let me, and I'm not sure I want it to. I need to know what's inside. The X community keeps growing. More stories, more proof. A student's mom sent me a photo from 204's window, showing a girl's silhouette dated last month. A retired cop claimed he investigated a disturbance in 204 and 03. Screams, no source. Every lead points to Anna or something using her name. The school's a lie, hiding a truth too big for its walls. I'm scared, but I'm angry. Why us? What does 204 want to say? Here's what haunts me. Anna's not alone in there. Something else is with her. Something old. Something that's been here longer than the school, the town, maybe the land itself. If you've taught in a room that felt wrong, heard whispers that weren't there, seen things you can't explain, drop it in the comments. I need your stories. And if you're in upstate New York, if you know room 204, tell me. Huge thanks to my Patreon crew for keeping this alive. Want more chills? Smash that subscribe button, hit the bell. And if you're in an old school, check the corners, because some rooms aren't empty, they're waiting. My phone buzzed with a text that froze my blood. Lily, it's Mom. Pick up Sam from school now. But Mom never texts. She always calls, and she was hours away. What would you do if you got a message from someone pretending to be your mom? At 12 years old, I nearly walked into a trap that day, one that could have ended in disaster. I lived in a quiet suburb with my family, and that afternoon I was at home, waiting for my little sister Sam to get back from school. The air was crisp with the scent of autumn leaves, kids' laughter echoing from the nearby park as I sat on the couch, scrolling through my phone, oblivious to the danger lurking just around the corner. That's when the message came through, the words glowing on my screen, so casual yet so wrong. I stared at it, my thumb hovering over the reply button, a knot forming in my stomach. Mom was at a work conference 3 hours away. She told me that morning she'd be home late. Why would she text me now? My heart raced as I reread the message, the words feeling colder each time, like a stranger's voice hiding behind a familiar name. I didn't know it then, but that text was the first step in a scheme that would bring me face to face with a nightmare, a moment that would change how I saw the world forever. The quiet suburb I'd always called home, with its tidy lawns and friendly neighbors, was about to reveal a darker side, one I'd never imagined could exist so close to us. The text sat heavy on my screen, the words, "Pick up Sam from school now," burning into my mind like a warning I couldn't ignore. I tried to shake off the unease, telling myself it was just Mom using a new number. Maybe her phone had died, but the doubt gnawed at me, a persistent whisper that something was wrong. The message was strange. Mom always called, never texted, and she was hours away at a work conference. I glanced out the window at the quiet street. The familiar houses lined up in neat rows, their windows glowing with the soft light of late afternoon. But the normalcy of it all felt like a lie now, a fragile facade hiding something sinister. I grabbed my phone and dialed Mom's number, my fingers trembling as I waited for the call to connect, each ring stretching into an eternity, my pulse quickening with every second that passed. Finally, she answered, her voice warm but confused. "Lily, what's wrong?" she asked, and I blurted out the message, my words tumbling over each other in a rush of panic. Her tone shifted instantly. She hadn't sent any text, hadn't asked me to pick up Sam. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. Someone was pretending to be her. Someone who wanted me at that school, alone with my little sister. My hands shook as I hung up, the room suddenly feeling too small, the walls closing in as I tried to make sense of it all. Who would do this? And why? The suburb I'd always thought was safe now seemed like a stage for something far more dangerous. A place where threats could hide behind a simple text message. I knew I had to get to Sam, but the fear was a living thing now, clawing at my chest as I grabbed my bike and pedaled toward the school, the autumn wind biting at my face. The streets were quiet, too quiet. The usual hum of neighborhood life replaced by an eerie stillness that made my skin prickle. I kept replaying Mom's words in my head. She hadn't sent the text. She hadn't sent anyone. So who had? When I reached the school, the playground was nearly empty. Just a few kids lingering near the swings, their laughter a stark contrast to the dread pooling in my stomach. That's when I saw it. A white van parked across the street, its engine idling. A man inside staring right at the school gates. He was older, his face shadowed by a baseball cap, but his gaze was intense. Locked on the entrance where Sam would soon walk out, his presence sending a shiver down my spine. I hid behind a tree, my bike propped against it, and watched as he scanned the area, his hands gripping the steering wheel, his posture tense like a predator waiting for the right moment. I called the police, my voice shaking as I whispered what I'd seen, and they told me to stay put. Minutes later, Sam emerged from the school, her backpack bouncing as she skipped toward the gate, oblivious to the danger lurking just across the street, her innocence a stark contrast to the threat I could feel in the air. I waved Sam over, my heart pounding as I kept one eye on the van, the man's gaze still fixed on the school, his presence a silent threat that made my blood run cold. Just as Sam reached me, I heard sirens in the distance, a sound that filled me with both relief and terror, knowing help was coming but also realizing how close we'd come to something awful. The man in the van saw the police cars approaching, started his engine, and sped off, disappearing around the corner before they could catch him. I hugged Sam tightly, her small arms wrapping around me, her innocent smile a painful reminder of what could have been lost. When I checked the number that sent the text, it wasn't Mom's. It was a burner phone, untraceable, and the police later confirmed similar incidents in the area, attempted abductions using fake messages. The weight of that truth settled over me like a heavy fog, a chilling realization that we'd narrowly escaped a fate that other kids might not have. The suburb, with its quiet streets and familiar faces, no longer felt safe, its innocence shattered by the knowledge that danger could hide behind a simple text. I kept replaying the day in my mind, the message, the van, the man's stare, wondering how many times he'd tried this before, how many kids hadn't been as lucky as we were. The police searched for him, but he was gone, a ghost in the wind, leaving behind only questions and fear. Who was behind that message, and how many kids weren't as lucky as we were? My screen froze, the game's eerie music cutting to static. Then a voice, low, distorted, growled through my headphones. "Get out now, it's watching you." My blood ran cold. It was 2 a.m. 2012, and I was alone in my Ohio apartment, playing an old horror game, Silent Shadows. My name's Alex, and that night the game glitched, the screen locked, and a line of dialogue played, words that didn't belong in any version. I yanked off my headphones, heart pounding, the words echoing in the dark. I was 19, a gamer who'd played Silent Shadows a dozen times, but this wasn't in the script. The room felt colder, the shadows sharper, like something was wrong beyond the screen. Was it a bug, a hack, or something else, something that knew I was alone? I stared at the frozen screen, the static hissing, and realized this wasn't just a game anymore. The apartment was quiet, save for the hum of my PC and the distant wail of a siren outside. I'd been up for hours, lost in the game's creepy mansions and jump scares, the kind of thrill I craved after long shifts at the gas station. My setup was basic, a second-hand monitor, a creaky chair, and a pair of cheap headphones, but it was my escape. Silent Shadows was a cult classic, its files picked apart by fans online. I knew every line, every glitch, but this voice, this warning, was new, alien. My hands hovered over the keyboard, unsure whether to restart or keep going. I'd read about game bugs, crashes, texture errors, but nothing like this. The static grew louder, and for a moment I thought I saw the screen flicker, a shadow moving where no character stood. My pulse raced. I was alone, but I didn't feel it. Not anymore. The static hissed through my headphones, a jagged pulse in the dark. I scoured forums and wikis, but found no trace of that dialogue. No mention of "get out now, it's watching you" in silent shadows. My apartment felt smaller, the walls closing in, the single bulb overhead casting long shadows. I was alone, but the air was heavy, like someone was standing just out of sight. I restarted the game, the loading screen flickering, my hands sweaty on the mouse. Silent Shadows was a horror game, sure, but I knew its tricks. Creaky doors, ghostly whispers, predictable scares. This wasn't part of it. I'd played every level, read every fan theory, but this voice, this glitch was something else. My heart thudded, a mix of fear and curiosity pulling me back to the screen. The game loaded, the mansion's pixelated halls glowing faintly. I moved my character, expecting normalcy, but the music was off. A low drone, not the usual score. My monitor flickered again, the edges of the screen warping like something was pressing against it. I told myself it was a bug, maybe a corrupted file, but my gut screamed otherwise. I'd grown up on games, fixed crashes, patched mods, but this felt personal, like the game was reacting to me. A memory flashed. My coworker Mia joking about cursed ROMs that crashed systems or worse. I'd laughed it off, but now, alone at 2:30 a.m., it wasn't funny. The room was cold, my breath visible in the dim light, and the PC's fan whirred louder, almost angry. I checked the game's files, digging through code I barely understood, but found nothing. No hidden audio, no mod. The forums were silent, most threads years old. The Silent Shadows community a ghost town. I typed a post, fingers trembling. Anyone hear a voice say, "Get out now"? No replies. The static returned, louder, and the screen glitched again, freezing on a distorted face. Not a character, just a mess of pixels. I yanked the headphones off, my pulse racing. Was my PC hacked? Was it a prank? The apartment was dead quiet, but I swore I heard a creak outside my door. I locked it, my hands shaking, and sat back down, staring at the screen. The game was still running, waiting for me to play, or to run. I forced myself to play, my character, creeping through the game's mansion, the drone in my headphones a constant hum. The game glitched again, the screen locking, and the voice returned, louder, warped. It's here. It sees you. My stomach dropped, the words slicing through, the static like a blade. No wiki, no forum mentioned this dialogue, and the fear was real now, not just a thrill. The monitor flickered, the mansion's walls twisting, colors bleeding into each other. I hit Alt plus F4, but nothing happened. The game wouldn't close. My PC groaned, the fan screaming, and the static grew into a roar, the same voice looping. It's here, it's here. I ripped off my headphones, but the sound leaked from the speakers, filling the room. My hands shook as I mashed the power button, but the screen stayed on, the distorted face flashing again. Its eyes, pixelated, wrong, staring right at me. I stumbled back, my chair creaking, the room freezing. The apartment was silent, but the air felt thick like something was watching. I checked the door, locked, but the creak came again, louder, from the hallway. Just the building settling, I told myself, but my heart wasn't buying it. I grabbed my phone, hoping to call Mia, but the battery was dead, though I'd charged it hours ago. The monitor pulsed, the game running on its own. My character moving without input, walking toward a door I'd never seen. The voice hissed again, "You can't leave," and the screen glitched, showing a room, my room, pixelated with a figure in the corner. My breath caught. It wasn't possible, but there it was. My desk, my chair, me. I yanked the power cord, the screen going black, the PC dying with a whine. The room was dark, the bulb flickering, and I sat there panting, waiting for the voice to come back. It didn't. But the silence was worse, heavy, like it was holding its breath. I checked the forums again, using my laptop, my hands trembling as I typed. A single reply to my post from an anonymous user. "Stop playing, it knows your name." My blood ran cold. I deleted the post, shut the laptop, and sat in the dark. Every creak, every shadow a threat. I didn't sleep, didn't move until dawn broke, the light chasing the fear back. But it wasn't gone, just waiting. I uninstalled Silent Shadows, wiped my drive, but the voice stayed with me, a whisper I couldn't shake. I never played Silent Shadows again, but the fear lingered, a cold weight in my chest. I told Mia at work, my voice shaky, expecting her to laugh. She didn't. She'd heard rumors in the gaming community about a haunted glitch in old horror games, tied to crashes, data wipes, even missing players. My stomach churned. Online, I found threads buried, half deleted, about Silent Shadows, about voices, screens showing things they shouldn't. No proof, just whispers, but enough to keep me up at night. Was it a hacker, a corrupted file, or something else? Something that saw me through the screen? I couldn't shake the reply, "It knows your name." Now I stick to new games, bright ones, nothing with shadows. I moved, got a new PC, but I check my drives, my locks, more than I should. Last month I found a forum post, dated 2013, about a player who heard my exact dialogue, then vanished. The thread was locked, the user gone. I deleted my old accounts, but the fear follows, sharp as that static. Was it just a glitch? A prank or something we'll never understand? I don't know. Mia avoids the topic and I don't push. All I know is I stopped the game and I'm still here. If your screen freezes and a voice speaks, don't listen. Shut it down, walk away, and don't look back. Some bugs don't stay in the code. I froze in my bed, the air thick with a silence that screamed. In the corner of my room, a shadow stood, tall, human-shaped, but wrong. It didn't move, didn't breathe, but I felt its gaze, heavy and unyielding, pinning me to the mattress. Then it tilted its head, and a low, raspy breath filled the dark. My heart stopped. This wasn't a dream. My name's Caleb Reed, and in the fall of 2019 I was 24, living alone in a cramped studio apartment in Portland, Oregon. I'd moved there for a tech job, thrilled to have my own space, a cozy corner unit with a view of the city lights. But from the first night something felt off. The air was too still, the shadows too deep. At night I started seeing it. A figure standing motionless in the corner, just beyond the glow of my bedside lamp. I'd blink and it was gone, but the terror was so intense I couldn't move. My body locked in place, my voice trapped in my throat. The apartment was old, its walls stained with years of stories I didn't want to know. The landlord, a gruff guy named Carl, had warned me about quirks, creaky floors, flickering lights. But he never mentioned the cold that seeped into my bones or the way the mirrors seemed to reflect more than they should. I told myself it was stress, long hours at work, but that feeling grew, a dread that clung to me like damp fog. My neighbor Jess, a barista with a knack for ghost stories, laughed when I mentioned the vibes. "City apartments, man," she said. "They're all haunted." But this wasn't just vibes. The figure appeared again the next night, always in the same spot, near the window where the streetlights couldn't reach. It wasn't a shadow cast by furniture. It was solid, its edges sharp, like it was carved from the dark. I'd lie there, paralyzed with fear, watching it watch me until I mustered the courage to flick on the light. Then, nothing. Just an empty corner, mocking me. But the air stayed heavy, like it was waiting for me to close my eyes again. The sightings didn't stop. Every night the figure was there, standing in the corner, its presence heavier, more oppressive. I tried keeping the lights on, but they'd flicker, sometimes dying completely, plunging me into darkness where I'd feel it watching, my body frozen in terror. One night I heard it, a low, guttural breath, like air escaping a rotting lung. I reached for my phone, hands shaking, but I couldn't move. My muscles locked as if the shadow was holding me down. The breath grew closer, circling my bed, and I swore I saw its head tilt, like it was studying me. I started sleeping with a knife under my pillow, but it was useless against something I couldn't touch. When I turned on the light, it vanished, leaving only a faint smell of damp earth like an open grave. I was losing it, bags under my eyes, jumping at every sound. I told Jess over coffee, my voice shaking, "You're imagining things," she said, laughing. "Too many late nights." But her smile faltered when I described the breath, the way it seemed to know me. No one believed me, and I started doubting myself. Was I going crazy? Then things got worse. Objects began moving. A mug sliding across the counter, my keys found under the bed. A photo of me and my sister tipped over, the frame cracked. One night I woke to scratching inside the walls like claws digging through plaster. I recorded it, but the audio was static, overlaid with a faint whisper. "Stay." I played it for my coworker, Mike, but he heard nothing. Just looked at me like I was unhinged. The figure kept appearing, now closer, sometimes by the door, its shape sharpening. A tall man, maybe, with no face, just a void where eyes should be. I stopped sleeping, my mind fraying. The fear was paralyzing, a weight that crushed me every night. I noticed marks on my floor, scratches forming a pattern like runes leading to the window. The shadow wasn't just watching, it was claiming me, and I was running out of time. I had to know what it was. I cornered Carl, the landlord, in the lobby, demanding answers about the apartment. He went pale, muttering about a tenant who'd lived there in the 90s. A man named Victor, found dead in that corner, his eyes wide with terror. "Heart attack," Carl said, but his hands shook. "Don't dig into it, kid." I did anyway, searching online. Victor wasn't the only one. 3 tenants in 50 years, all dead in that apartment, all ruled natural causes. Rumors spoke of a visitor that drove people mad, a shadow that never left. I was trapped with it, my sanity slipping. Every night the figure stood there, now inches from my bed, its void face pulsing like a heartbeat. I couldn't move, couldn't scream, the air choking me as it leaned closer. My friends thought I was losing it, Jess avoiding me, Mike suggesting therapy. I felt alone, drowning in fear. I found an old lease in a drawer, Victor's name scrawled in faded ink, along with a note. "It sees you when you sleep." My blood ran cold. The shadow wasn't random. It was tied to the apartment, to that corner, to me. I tried to move out, but the lease was ironclad and weird things happened. My application for a new place vanished. My car keys disappeared for days. The shadow was keeping me here. One night I set up a camera, desperate for proof. At 2 a.m. it stood there motionless, but the footage showed something else. A figure pacing, its limbs jerking like a broken puppet, then stopping to stare at the camera. I showed Jess, and she gasped, finally believing me. "Get out," she whispered, but I couldn't. The shadow wouldn't let me. I found a journal in the closet, Victor's, its pages filled with rants about the watcher that came for him. The last entry read, "It wants my eyes." I realized it wasn't just haunting me, it was feeding, growing stronger with every sleepless night. I had to fight it. Victor's journal mentioned salt and iron to repel spirits. At midnight, I poured salt around my bed, clutching an iron poker, heart pounding. The figure appeared, standing in the corner, its void face twisting now with faint eyes, red, glowing, burning into me. I was paralyzed, fear locking my limbs as it glided closer, the air freezing, the runes on the floor glowing faintly. It whispered my name, a sound like shattering glass, and I couldn't scream. My throat sealed shut. I swung the poker, and it hissed, recoiling, but the lights died, plunging me into darkness. It vanished when I flicked the light back on, but the salt was scattered. The poker bent like taffy. I didn't sleep, my body shaking, the terror still gripping me. The next day I told Jess everything, but she thought I was imagining it, her voice gentle, like I was fragile. I wasn't. The shadow was real and it was winning. I broke my lease, losing my deposit, and moved in with Jess for a week. The shadow didn't follow, but I wasn't free. I found an article about the building, a fire in the 70s, a man trapped. In that corner, his screams echoing as he burned. Was that the shadow, or something older using his form? I still see it in my dreams, standing motionless, its red eyes waiting. If you ever see a shadow that doesn't move, don't look away. It's watching. What was in my apartment? Tell me in the comments and subscribe for more stories that'll haunt your nights. I opened my eyes to a cold breath on my face, and in that moment, I knew I wasn't alone. I'm Hannah, and in 2024, a night in my Chicago apartment became a descent into terror. I woke up with this crushing weight on my chest, like something was pinning me down, and what I thought was a nightmare turned into a fight for my life. Something was in my home, and it wasn't human. My apartment was a cozy studio, a safe haven in the city's hum. I'd lived there a year, never worried about locks or shadows. But that night, as I lay in bed, the air turned heavy, the silence oppressive. I couldn't move. My arms and legs felt locked, like they weren't mine, my body betraying me. My heart pounded, eyes straining in the dark, and then I saw it. A shadow looming over me, its grip tightening. There was someone there, holding me, their grip cold and strong. A shadow in the dark, its form barely human, eyes glinting like embers. They whispered something low and threatening, words I couldn't make out, but they chilled me. A voice that crawled into my soul. Panic surged, but I was trapped, helpless in my own bed. This wasn't a dream. It was real, and it wanted something from me. I should have screamed, but fear stole my voice. What was this thing? Why my apartment? That night would drag me into a mystery that still haunts my every step. A terror that might still be watching, waiting for me to close my eyes again. I lay frozen, my body a prisoner. I couldn't move. My arms and legs felt locked like they weren't mine. Every muscle screaming to fight, but held by an unseen force. There was someone there, holding me, their grip cold and strong. A shadow in the dark, its outline shifting. Not solid, but fluid, like smoke with eyes. They whispered something low and threatening, words I couldn't make out, but they chilled me, now clearer. You can't run. You're mine. The voice wasn't human. It echoed, layered, as if from another world. My chest burned, the weight crushing. I woke up with this crushing weight on my chest, like something was pinning me down, not just physical but mental. A pressure that clawed at my thoughts. The room was pitch black, my lamp dead, but those eyes glowed, unblinking, boring into me. I tried to scream, but my throat was sealed, my breath stolen. This thing wasn't just holding me. It was feeding on my fear. Seconds stretched into eternity. I saw flashes, my life, my mistakes, as if it was pulling them from my mind. The air grew colder, my skin icing over, the whispers now a chorus chanting my name. I wasn't just trapped, I was marked. I had to fight, or I'd never wake up. In a surge of panic, I focused every ounce of will, my fingers twitching. I fought. Back, thrashing, screaming, punching at the air until it let go and I heard footsteps running. The shadow recoiling, its grip loosening. The room spun, the weight lifting, but the whispers lingered, echoing in my skull. I was free, but not safe. Not yet. I stumbled out of bed, my legs weak, heart racing. I fought back, thrashing, screaming, punching at the air until it let go. And I heard footsteps running, the sound fading into silence. I flicked on every light, my hands trembling, searching for proof it wasn't a dream. The door was still locked, no sign of anyone breaking in, but I knew it wasn't a dream. Every window was secure, the apartment untouched, yet the air felt wrong, heavy with a presence I couldn't see. I checked the corners, under the bed, behind the curtains. Nothing. But the whispers hadn't stopped. They were fainter, coming from the walls, the floor, calling my name. My mirror was fogged, despite the warm night, and in it I swore I saw a shadow move, not my reflection, but something else. My skin crawled. This wasn't just an intruder. It was something more, something that didn't need doors. I called the police, my voice shaking. They arrived, skeptical, checking locks and windows. Probably sleep paralysis, they said, noting no signs of entry. Even after that night, I felt watched, like it was still out there waiting, their words doing nothing to ease the dread. I found scratches on my bed frame, thin and deliberate, like claws had grazed the wood. No human could have done that without waking me. I sat up all night clutching a kitchen knife, the whispers fading but never gone. My apartment, my sanctuary, was now a cage. I had to know who or what had been here, and why it chose me. The answer was closer than I wanted, and it wasn't done with me yet. The next night I couldn't sleep, the knife by my side, every creak a threat. Even after that night I felt watched, like it was still out there, waiting, a shadow just beyond my sight. Around 2 a.m. the air grew cold, the lights dimming. I woke up with this crushing weight on my chest, like something was pinning me down, the same terror returning. I forced my eyes open, and there it was, the shadow, closer now. Its form sharper, eyes blazing in the dark. There was someone there, holding me, their grip cold and strong. A shadow in the dark, but now I saw more. A face, or the lack of one, a void that sucked in light. They whispered something, low and threatening. Words I couldn't make out, but they chilled me, now clear. "You can't leave me," I screamed, thrashing, but it held tighter, the hum from its presence shaking the room. In desperation, I grabbed the knife, slashing at the air. The shadow recoiled, a guttural hiss escaping it, and I broke free, the weight lifting. I fought back, thrashing, screaming, punching at the air until it let go, and I heard footsteps running. But this time something fell. A rusted key, old and heavy, clattering to the floor. I locked myself in the bathroom, heart pounding, the whispers now outside the door, scratching at the wood. Dawn came. The apartment silent, but the key was still there. Not mine. Not from this place. I hadn't escaped. It had let me go, leaving a token, a promise. Whatever it wasn't just an intruder, it was tied to this apartment, and it wasn't finished with me. I moved out a week later, but the terror followed. Nightmares plagued me, faceless shadows, cold grips, whispers chanting my name. Even after that night, I felt watched, like it was still out there, waiting, a presence that clung to every dark corner. I'm in a new city now, but I can't sleep without lights on. The knife always close. That apartment marked me, and I fear it's not over. I researched the building. A tenant decades ago, a man with a violent past, disappeared after incidents. My unit. Locals whispered of strange noises, tenants fleeing. The key I found wasn't listed in the building's records, but an old locksmith said it matched a storage room, long sealed. I didn't dare check. The door was still locked. No sign of anyone breaking in, but I knew it wasn't a dream. Something lived in that apartment, and it chose me. I'm not saying it's a ghost or a stalker, but that place isn't safe. I woke up with this crushing weight on my chest, like something was pinning me down, and it wasn't human. If you rent a cheap studio in Chicago, check its history. Don't ignore the whispers, don't sleep in the dark. Whatever's there, it's still hunting, and it knows who you are. What was it? A nightmare? A spirit? Or something that's waited in that apartment for years? Drop your thoughts below if you've woken to eyes in the dark. I need to know. Because every night, I feel that weight, and I'm terrified it's coming back. My hand burned, not with pain, but with a cold, crawling sensation, like something alive was burrowing under my skin. I woke up to find a bite mark on my wrist, its edges waxy, glistening, like it was carved by something not human. It wasn't there last night, not until we played that Ouija board, laughing, daring the dark to answer. We thought it was a game. We were wrong. Whatever we called, it's still here, and it's not letting go. I'm Mia, 27, living in a quiet suburb of Portland, Oregon. Last fall, my friends Josh, Lila, and Ethan came over for a spooky night in, fueled by cheap wine and boredom. We pulled out an old Ouija board, half joking, half curious, thinking we'd mess around, maybe scare ourselves. It answered. Fast. Too fast, spelling out words that chilled us to the bone. We stopped, but the damage was done. Something came through, and it left its mark on me, literally. It was October, the air crisp, leaves piling up outside Josh's creaky old house. We dimmed the lights, lit candles, giggling as we set up the board. "Let's ask who's here," Lila said, her eyes glinting with mischief. We placed our fingers on the planchette, asking, "Is anyone there?" The board jolted, sliding to yes, so hard it nearly tipped over. We laughed, nervous but still playing. "Who are you?" Josh asked. The planchette spelled Notfriend. My stomach dropped. Lila whispered, "This is creepy," but Ethan pushed on. "What do you want?" It spelled YOU. We yanked our hands away, hearts racing, the room suddenly freezing. We tried to shrug it off, blaming the wine, the vibes. But the candles flickered, casting shadows that didn't match our shapes. I felt it, a presence heavy watching. We packed the board away, turned on every light, and swore we'd never touch it again. I went home, uneasy but exhausted, crashing hard. Then I woke up to that bite, its waxy teeth marks glowing faintly in the dark. My phone buzzed, texts from Lila. "Nightmares all night. You okay?" Josh, "Something's wrong." Whatever we'd done, it wasn't over. It was just beginning. I stared at the bite mark, its waxy edges pulsing faintly like it was alive. It didn't bleed, didn't bruise, just sat there, cold, unnatural, a reminder of last night's mistake. I called Josh, my voice shaking. "Check your body," I said. He found nothing, but Lila texted a photo. Scratches on her arm, thin, precise, like claw marks. Ethan reported nightmares, vivid, of a figure in his room, whispering his name. We'd opened something, and it wasn't just in Josh's house anymore. We met up, pale and jumpy, comparing stories. Lila's scratches burned, like the bite, but left no blood. Ethan's dreams felt real, like the figure was still there when he woke. Josh admitted the Ouija board wasn't his. He'd found it in the attic, buried in a box with strange symbols carved into it. "I thought it was cool," he said, guilt in his eyes. "We'd played with something we didn't understand, and it was angry." I researched Ouija boards, diving into X posts and occult forums. The consensus was chilling. They're doorways, and we'd left ours wide open. Some said we'd invited a spirit, others a demon drawn to our carelessness. One user warned, "Marks like that mean it's claimed you. It'll follow until it gets what it wants." My heart sank. The bite throbbed as if agreeing. I checked the mirror. My eyes looked wrong, shadowed, like something was looking back through me. That night I felt it again, that presence, heavier now in my apartment. My lights flickered, my dog growled at empty corners. I found a candle from Josh's, its wick black, unburned since last night. When I lit it, the flame danced wildly and the whispers started. Mine, low, guttural from nowhere. I blew it out, heart pounding, but the air stayed thick. Lila called, hysterical. She'd seen a shadow move in her mirror. Ethan's texts stopped. Josh found symbols scratched into his floor, under the rug. Whatever we'd called, it was spreading, attaching itself to us, marking us. We weren't just scared, we were hunted, and the worst part? We had no idea how to close the door we'd opened, or if we even could. The bite wouldn't fade. It glowed at night, a sickly shimmer, like it was feeding on me. Lila's scratches spread, Ethan's silence grew ominous, and Josh's house felt like a tomb, lights dimming, air heavy. We knew we'd invited something evil, but what? A ghost, a demon, or something older, hungrier? I couldn't sleep, haunted by whispers, shadows that moved when I blinked. We were fools to play that game, and now we were paying the price. I dove deeper, scouring X for answers. A thread about Ouija boards described attachments, entities that latch onto players, marking them with bites, scratches, even burns. One user, claiming to be a medium, said, "You've got a hitchhiker. It's not human, and it won't leave without a fight." They suggested a ritual, salt, candles, a banishing chant, but warned it could backfire. I shared it with the group. Lila was desperate, Josh skeptical, Ethan unreachable. We had to try. We gathered at Josh's, the board back on the table, its symbols glowing faintly under candlelight. We salted the room, chanted the words, demanded the entity leave. The board answered, "NOWHERETOGO." The candles flared, then died. A scream tore through the room, not ours, echoing from the board itself. The bite burned, Lila's scratches bled, and Josh's symbols glowed red on the floor. We fled, the house shaking behind us, like it was laughing. The ritual hadn't closed. The door, it had made it angrier. I called a local occult shop, begging for help. The owner, a woman named Vera, listened grimly. "You've got to feed her," she said. "It's not a spirit. It's a thing that thrives on fear, pain. That board was a key and you turned it." She agreed to meet, but warned us to stay together. Alone, we were vulnerable. I checked X again. More stories. Same pattern. Ouija games, marks, hauntings, some ending in disappearances. One post mentioned a Portland house, Josh's address, tied to a 1920s cult that opened doors. My blood ran cold. Had we stumbled into their legacy? The bite throbbed, whispering, "Mine." We weren't just marked, we were claimed, and time was running out to break free. Vera's shop smelled of sage and old books, her eyes sharp as she examined my bite mark. "It's growing," she said, tracing its waxy edges. Lila's scratches were worse, now curling into symbols. Ethan finally texted, a photo of his chest, marked with a waxy burn, like my bite. Josh's house was unlivable, doors slamming, symbols pulsing. Whatever we'd unleashed was tightening its grip, and we were running out of time. Vera dug into the cult angle, pulling dusty tomes from her shelves. In the 1920s, a Portland sect used Ouija-like boards to open portals, summoning feeders for power. Their rituals went wrong, leaving a trail of disappearances. Josh's house, built on their old compound, was a hotspot. "That board was their key," Vera said. "You didn't just call something, you woke it." My bite throbbed, as if to hurt her. Was it the cult's entity or something they'd served? We tried Vera's ritual, salt circles, iron talismans, chants in a language I didn't know. At Josh's, the air crackled, the board shaking, spelling Youaremine. A shadow lunged from the corner, not human, its eyes glowing like the bite. Lila screamed. Ethan froze. Josh swung an iron bar. It vanished. But the house groaned, windows cracking. Vera cursed. "It's too strong. We need to burn the board." But when we looked, the board was gone, vanished from the table. My heart sank. We'd made it angrier, and it was free. X exploded with new posts. Portland locals reporting shadows, whispers, marks. A barista near Josh's saw a figure in her shop, eyes like the shadows. A neighbor found symbols in their yard, matching Josh's. This wasn't just our problem anymore, it was spreading. I kept the bite covered, but it burned through bandages, whispering constantly now. Lila stopped sleeping. Ethan grew distant. Josh obsessed over the cult. Vera warned us to stay public. Alone, it'd pick us off. We were marked, hunted, tied.
If you could step back and eat be he was
The bite's a scar now, glowing faintly. A constant reminder of our mistake. Lila's in therapy, Ethan's gone silent, Josh's house is abandoned. I'm still here, but I'm not free. That thing we called, it's still out there, whispering, in my dreams, watching from shadows. We opened a door we can't close, and it's not just us. Portland's changing, shadows moving, marks appearing. We were fools, and now we're its keepers. Vera's searching for the board, but I fear it's gone where we can't follow. X posts grow, more bites, more scratches, more shadows. A kid near Josh's found a waxy mark on her arm, same as mine. A cop reported a disturbance at the old cult site, screams with no source. This isn't just a ghost, it's a plague, spreading through our carelessness, feeding on our fear. I checked my mirrors, my windows, waiting for it to come for Here's what haunts me. That board wasn't random. It chose us, or we chose it, stumbling into a trap set a century ago. If you've played Ouija, felt a presence that didn't leave, seen marks you can't explain, drop it in the comments. I need your stories. And if you're in Portland, if you've seen a shadow with glowing eyes, tell me. Big thanks to my Patreon crew for keeping this alive. Want more chills? Smash that subscribe button, hit the bell. And if you find an old Ouija board, burn it, because some games don't end. They own you. It was 2 a.m. when the knocking started. Sharp, deliberate taps echoing from the back door of the diner, cutting through the stillness of our night shift. We froze, staring at each other, waiting for it to stop. It didn't. What would you do? If the sound wouldn't stop, but no one was there. That night at a 24-hour diner in a small town became a haunting memory none of us dared to speak of again. I worked the night shift at a 24-hour diner in a small town, alongside a few other employees, in a place where the streets were dead quiet after midnight. The diner was a relic, its neon sign flickering outside, casting a dim glow over the empty parking lot. The only sound the hum of the fridge and the occasional clink of dishes as we cleaned up after the last customer. We were halfway through our shift when we heard the first knocks on the back door, a steady, rhythmic tapping that sent a chill down my spine. My coworker Jamie, wiping down the counter, stopped mid-motion, her eyes wide as she whispered, "Did you hear that?" I nodded, my heart racing, the silence of the town suddenly feeling oppressive, like a weight pressing down on us. We waited, hoping it was a delivery driver or a prank, but the knocks continued, growing louder, more insistent. Each tap a reminder that we were alone, vulnerable, in the middle of nowhere. The diner, once a comforting haven for late-night travelers, now felt like a trap, its walls hiding something we couldn't explain, something that made us question everything we thought we knew about the quiet town we called home. The diner was a small, cozy spot, its checkered floor scuffed from years of use. The booths lined with cracked red vinyl that creaked under the weight of late-night regulars. But at 2 a.m., with the town asleep, it felt like a different world, isolated, cut off from the safety of daylight. We were halfway through our shift when we heard the first knocks on the back door, a steady, rhythmic tapping that sent a chill down my spine. Jamie dropped her rag, her face pale as she looked toward the back, where the door led to a narrow alley shrouded in darkness. Alex, our cook, emerged from the kitchen, his apron stained with grease, his usual gruff demeanor replaced by a tense frown. "Who's knocking at this hour?" he muttered, but none of us moved, the sound growing louder, more urgent, each tap echoing through the empty diner like a drumbeat. We waited, hoping it would stop, but it didn't. It only got worse. Then came a low, screeching sound, like nails on a chalkboard, followed by the lights flickering, casting eerie shadows across the walls. My breath caught in my throat as the neon sign outside buzzed erratically, its light stuttering, plunging, deuce into moments of darkness that felt suffocating. Jamie whispered, "We should check," but her voice trembled, and Alex shook his head, his knuckles white as he gripped a spatula like a weapon. The diner, once a place of warmth and comfort, now felt like a cage, the shadows moving in ways they shouldn't, the air thick with a tension we couldn't name. The knocking wouldn't stop, a relentless rhythm that seemed to mock our growing fear, each tap a reminder of how alone we were, how vulnerable. Alex finally took a step toward the back door, his movements slow, deliberate, as if he was fighting every instinct to turn and run. Jamie and I followed, our footsteps hesitant, the flickering lights casting our shadows in jagged shapes across the walls, making the diner feel like a haunted house rather than the familiar workplace we'd known for months. We reached the door, its chipped paint peeling under the dim glow of a single bulb, and Alex pressed his ear against it, listening. The knocking stopped abruptly, the silence that followed somehow more terrifying, a void that seemed to swallow the air around us. Then we saw it, A number scratched into the fog on the window beside the door. A single digit, 7, written as if by an invisible finger. My stomach dropped, a wave of nausea washing over me as I realized the window had been cleared just moments ago. Jamie gasped, her hand flying to her mouth, and Alex stumbled back, his face pale, his voice barely a whisper as he said, "We're not opening that door." The diner's warmth was gone, replaced by a cold that seeped into our bones, a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature outside, a chill that spoke of something watching, waiting just beyond the glass. We stood there frozen, staring at the number 7 etched into the fog on the window, the silence stretching on, heavy and suffocating, as if the diner itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. The lights flickered one last time before stabilizing, the hum of the fridge returning. But the normalcy felt like a cruel joke, a facade that couldn't erase what we just experienced. None of us spoke about it. Not then, not ever. Too scared to even acknowledge what had happened. We finished our shift in silence, our movements mechanical, our eyes darting to the back door every few minutes, expecting the knocking to start again, expecting something to come for us. We were too scared to even acknowledge what had happened, too scared to speak of it, even to each other. When dawn finally broke, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, we left the diner without a word, the weight of that night pressing down on us like a physical force, a secret we'd all agreed to bury. The small town, with its quiet streets and sleepy charm, now felt like a place where darkness lingered, hiding in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to strike. I kept replaying the night in my mind, the knocks, the screech, the number on the window, wondering what it meant, wondering if we'd really been alone in that diner. What was making those sounds, and why didn't any of us ever speak of it again? A low, rasping breath broke the forest's silence, close, too close. It was noon 2015, and I was lost in a dense Maine woodland, my co-worker Laura by my side, her eyes wide with fear. My name's Nathan, and that day we stumbled into a nightmare, hearing a strange, heavy breathing that wasn't human, wasn't animal, but something else. My heart pounded, the air thick with damp earth and dread. We'd only meant to take a quick walk during lunch, but the trees had closed in, the path gone, and now this sound, a relentless, guttural breath, stalked us through the mist. Laura gripped my arm, whispering, "What is that?" I didn't. No, but it was near and it wasn't stopping. Was it a bear, a person, or something worse, something that knew we were lost? The forest held its secrets, and we were about to learn one. The woods were thick, the kind where light barely reached the ground, the air heavy with pine and decay. Laura and I worked at a small tech firm, a gray building on the edge of town, and we'd walked these trails before, a break from fluorescent lights and deadlines. But today the path twisted, the markers vanished, and we were adrift, our phones useless with no signal. The breathing started minutes ago, faint at first, like a whisper in the leaves, but now it was loud, deliberate, circling us. My skin crawled, every rustle a threat, every shadow a figure. We were alone, or so we thought, but the forest felt alive, watching. I clutched my water bottle, a pathetic weapon, and glanced at Laura, her face pale, her breath shallow. We needed to get out, but the breathing was closing in, and I feared we weren't alone anymore. The forest was a labyrinth, its pines towering, their branches knitting a ceiling that blocked the sun. The strange breathing followed us, a low, rasping sound that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, echoing through the mist. Laura's hand trembled on my arm, her voice a whisper. "Nathan, it's getting closer." My mouth was dry, my pulse a drumbeat as we pushed through underbrush, thorns snagging my jeans. We were lost, the path gone. Our lunch break turned into a nightmare. The air was damp, heavy with the scent of moss and fear, and every step felt like a mistake. I'd walked these woods before, but today they were different, hostile, alive, as if the trees themselves were watching. Laura and I were coders, not hikers. Our office a mile away, a gray box of cubicles and coffee. We'd taken this walk to clear our heads, a routine we'd done a dozen times. But the trail markers, red ties on branches, had vanished, the path swallowed by roots and fog. My phone showed no bars, Laura's battery dead, and our map was a soggy scrap in my pocket. The breathing grew louder, a guttural rhythm, and I felt dizzy, the world tilting. Was it a bear? A moose? But bears didn't stalk like this, didn't breathe with such purpose. I remembered stories, locals talking about missing hikers, strange sounds in these woods. Just the wind, they'd said. But this wasn't wind. We moved faster, branches snapping underfoot. But the forest seemed to shift, the trees closing ranks. Laura's eyes darted, her breath ragged. "What if it's a person?" she hissed. The thought chilled me, someone out here, watching, waiting. I scanned the shadows, seeing nothing but feeling everything. A twig snapped behind us, sharp, deliberate, and I spun, my water bottle raised like a club. Nothing, just mist and trees, but the breathing was relentless, trailing us, a predator's pace. My head spun, my vision blurring, as if the air itself was pressing down. We needed to find the trail, the road, anything. But the forest was a cage and the breathing was its lock. Every step took us deeper, and I feared we'd never get out. The breathing was a shadow, chasing us through the forest, its guttural rasp, so close I felt it on my neck. Laura stumbled, her face pale, her eyes wild. "Nathan, it's right behind us." My legs burned, my lungs screaming, as we crashed through brambles, the mist thickening into a suffocating veil. We were dizzy, disoriented, the trees spinning, the ground unsteady. The breathing never stopped, circling, stalking, a relentless hunter we couldn't see. I grabbed Laura's hand, pulling her forward, my voice hoarse. "Keep moving." But the forest was a maze, every path a dead end, every sound a threat. My head throbbed, my vision narrowing, as if the air was draining my strength. Was it panic? Or something else? Something in these woods that didn't want us to leave? We'd been running for what felt like hours. The trail long gone, our phones useless. The breathing grew louder, a deep, wet sound, like a beast drawing air through teeth. I thought of bears, cougars, but nothing matched this, too deliberate, too aware. Laura sobbed, her steps faltering, and I felt it too. The weight of being watched, hunted. A branch cracked, sharp to our left, and I spun, seeing only shadows. "What is it?" Laura whispered, her voice breaking. I didn't answer, couldn't. My mind racing with stories. Hikers lost, never found, whispers of something in these woods. We needed help now. I fumbled for my satellite phone, a clunky thing from work, and dialed 911, my hands shaking. "We're lost," I guessed. "Something's following us." The dispatcher was calm, too calm, telling us to stay put, but the breathing was closer. A constant suffocating presence, and staying felt like surrender. We kept moving, staggering through the trees, the satellite phone our only hope. The breathing shifted, circling faster, and Laura screamed, "It's everywhere!" My vision blurred, my knees buckling, but I dragged her forward, praying for rescue. A faint siren wailed, distant, and we stumbled toward it, the breathing still behind us. Finally, lights, flashlights, rangers shouting our names. We collapsed, gasping, as they let us out, the forest falling silent. But no one believed us. The rangers calling it panic, our co-workers laughing it off. Laura's eyes were haunted, her voice small. It was real, Nathan. I nodded, but the world didn't care. The breathing stopped, but its echo stayed. A scar we couldn't shake. Laura was never the same. She had nightmares about the breathing, waking in terror, her laughter gone, her eyes hollow. I tried to check on her, but she pulled away. Her texts, Judy, her voice distant. 2 years later, I got the call. Laura took her own life alone in her apartment. My heart broke, guilt clawing at me. I hadn't done enough, hadn't fought harder to make people listen. No one believed us, and that disbelief crushed her, left her to face the dark alone. I heard whispers at work, rumors of a cursed forest, of hikers hearing things, vanishing. Was it true? I didn't know, but Laura's pain was real, and I carried it too. Now I avoid those woods. The tech firm a memory. I moved to the city, but the breathing haunts me. A sound I hear in high, quiet moments. Last year I found a blog post. Local lore about a forest where something breathes tied to missing persons cases. Unsolved. No evidence, just stories, but enough to chill me. Was it a predator? A trick of the mind? Or something else? Something we'll never name. I don't know. I keep Laura's photo, a reminder of what we lost. If you're in a forest and hear breathing, don't wait. Run, find light, and don't look back. Some sounds carry truths no one will believe. I was alone in my house, the clock ticking past midnight, when my dog's barking shattered the silence. I stumbled to the living room expecting a stray cat outside, but froze. A single muddy footprint stood on the rug by the glass door, fresh, human, and inside my home. My blood ran cold. I lived alone, and that wasn't my shoe. My name's Dylan Walsh, and in the summer of 2024, I was 17. Staying solo in our family's old house in a quiet Vermont town. My parents and younger brother were at our cabin a few miles away, and my sister Harper was working late shifts at a diner. I was used to the house's creaks, the way it groaned like an old man, but that night something felt wrong. Bosco, Harper's dog, was barking like crazy at the glass door, his growls low, and feral hackles raised. I'd always trusted his instincts. He'd bark at passers-by, but this was different. Desperate. The house was a 3-story relic, its windows rattling in the wind, the second floor a maze of unused rooms. I checked the glass door and found it open about 2 or 3 inches, the lock undone. My stomach dropped. I knew I'd locked it earlier that night. I was paranoid about break-ins, checking every door twice. I slammed it shut, heart pounding, and scanned the dark alley outside. Nothing. But that footprint burned into my mind. A silent scream that someone had been here. Or still was. I tried to calm Bosco, telling myself it was a fluke, maybe a neighbor's kid playing a prank. But the unease grew, a prickling on my neck like eyes watching from the shadows. The town wasn't safe. There'd been break-ins, nothing stolen, just homes violated, doors left ajar, footprints left behind. I grabbed a flashlight, checking the first floor, closets, anywhere someone could hide. The house was silent, but the air felt thick like it was holding a secret. I didn't dare go upstairs, not yet. I went back to bed, but sleep was impossible. Bosco kept barking, growling at the glass door, his eyes fixed on the dark. I got up, nerves frayed, and checked again. The door was still locked, but now I heard it. A faint creak from the floor above, like someone stepping carefully, deliberately. My heart hammered. Bosco's ears perked, his growl deepening. And I realized it wasn't just his paws I was hearing. There were heavier steps, human steps, moving in sync with his. I froze, flashlight trembling, the beam cutting through the dark living room. Called out, "Harper!" hoping my sister had come home early. Silence. Bosco whined, pacing, his eyes darting to the stairs. The creaking stopped, but the air turned heavy, like someone was holding their breath. I grabbed a baseball bat, my palms sweaty, and crept to the staircase. The second floor was pitch black, the hallway a tunnel of shadows. I flicked on the light, but it flickered, casting jagged shapes on the walls. Another step creaked, closer now, from the guest room. I wanted to run, but fear rooted me, my legs like lead. I checked the guest room, bat raised, but it was empty. Bed untouched, window locked. Yet the floor creaked again, now from the attic. My mind raced. Had I locked someone inside when I shut the door? The thought was insane, but the town's break-ins flashed in my head. Silent intruders, no theft, just presence. I backed downstairs, Bosco at my heels, and called Harper. No answer. I texted her, begging her to come home, but my phone showed one bar, the signal fading. The house felt alive, watching, waiting for me to slip. At 2 a.m., I heard the front door unlock. Harper, finally. She let Bosco out, oblivious to my panic, and headed to the bathroom. I told her about the footprint, the creaks, but she yawned. "You're paranoid, Dylan. It's just Bosco." I didn't believe it, and neither did she, not really. Her eyes flicked to the stairs, uneasy. The next day, I was a wreck, but Harper's dismissal stung worse. I knew I'd locked someone in. The creaks too human, the footprint too real. During a movie night with Harper and Mom, I brought it up, expecting a laugh, but Harper's face fell. She admitted the glass door was open again that night, wider this time after she'd used the front door for Bosco. My stomach dropped. Someone had been in the house, hiding upstairs, waiting for a chance to slip out, while Harper was in the bathroom. The thought that I'd trapped them for hours made my skin crawl. Mom brushed it off, but I saw her check the locks twice. I was terrified, replaying every creak, every shadow. I searched the second floor, finding a smudge on the guest room window like a handprint, too high to be mine. The attic door, always locked, was ajar, a faint smell of sweat lingering inside. I told Harper, but she said it was my imagination, her voice shaky. I felt alone, trapped in a house that had betrayed me. The town's history gnawed at me, break-ins, with no theft, rumors of a drifter who watched people sleep, leaving only footprints. I dug online, finding a forum about the town. A post from 2015 described a man caught hiding in attics, never stealing, just watching. He'd vanished after a police chase, leaving behind a knife etched with "Stay." My heart stopped. I checked the attic again, finding a scrap of cloth, frayed and stained, tucked behind a beam. It wasn't ours. Someone had been here and they weren't gone. That night, the creaking returned, now from the basement. Bosco growled, refusing to go near the stairs. I grabbed the bat, my phone dead, and crept down. The basement was dark, the air sour, and I saw it, a shadow moving, too tall, too silent. I swung the bat, hitting nothing, but the glass door upstairs was open again, wide, the night air pouring in. Someone had escaped, and I'd let them. I called the police, but they found nothing. No footprints, no cloth, just an open door. They said I was imagining things, but I knew someone had been in the house, their presence lingering like a stain. I installed cameras, sleeping with the bat, but the fear didn't fade. The footage showed static at 3 a.m., a faint shape crossing the living room, too blurry to identify. Harper watched it, her face pale, and moved to the cabin with Mom. I stayed, too stubborn to run, but every creak felt like a threat. A week later, I found a news clipping in the attic, dated 1998. A family had lived here, their daughter missing after a break-in. The suspect, a drifter, was never caught, but locals swore he still roamed, hiding in homes, leaving marks, a footprint, a knife, a whisper. My cameras caught it again, a shadow by the glass door, holding something glinting. I froze, realizing I'd locked him in that night and he'd come back, watching, waiting. I moved out, crashing with a friend, but the house wasn't done. My old neighbor sent me a photo. A man standing in my yard at midnight, staring at the glass door, his face obscured. The police dismissed it, but I'm still scared, checking locks, waking to every sound. Was he a drifter, a ghost, or something worse? If you ever find a footprint that doesn't belong, don't stay. Someone's watching. Who was in my house? Share your story in the comments and subscribe for more tales that'll keep you up. The night I found a stranger's footprint in my backyard, I knew moving to this town was a mistake. I'm Marcus, and in 2024, I stepped into a neighborhood that hid a darkness I couldn't escape. The neighborhood is filled with tweakers and the other shady types, my neighbor Roy warned me. But his words were just the beginning of a nightmare that's still closing in. I'd moved to Ashwood, a sleepy town in Nevada, for a fresh start. The houses were old, the streets quiet, but something felt off. On my first day, Roy, a grizzled guy with a dog, approached me. "The neighborhood is filled with tweakers and the other shady types," he said, his eyes sharp, sizing me up. I laughed it off. Small town gossip, I thought. But his warning stuck, a seed of unease. Roy invited me to his place to build a shelf, a friendly gesture. But as we worked, he probed. He was asking me questions. "Why did you move out of here from out of state? Who lives with you?" His tone was casual, but his questions dug deep, like he was mapping my life. He starts telling me that he can see our yard from his place, his grin unsettling. I brushed it off, but that night I found the footprint, too large, too deliberate, outside my window. My new home wasn't safe. Roy's words weren't just talk, something was watching me. What did he know? What was Ashwood hiding? That footprint was the start of a mystery that would unravel my world, a threat that might still be one step behind me. At Roy's house, the unease grew. His garage was cluttered, tools scattered, but his eyes were focused, watching me. He was asking me questions. "Why did you move out of here from out of state? Who lives with you?" Each one sharper, like he was peeling back my defenses. I deflected, keeping it light, but his grin didn't reach his eyes. He starts telling me that he can see our yard from his place, pointing to a window with a clear view of my backyard. My stomach twisted. He'd been watching. "If someone breaks into our place, that we can see them and shoot them from his room," he said, patting a locked safe, his voice calm but chilling. Was it a joke? A threat? I forced a laugh, but the air felt thick, the walls closing in. Roy's dog growled, sensing something I couldn't. I wanted out, but he insisted on showing me the town. We climbed into his pickup, the cab smelling of oil and smoke. He walks to his car and pulls something out, drops a holster between us, the gun's weight heavy in the silence. "Don't worry about it," he said, but his eyes said otherwise. As we drove, he went quiet, his hands tight on the wheel. The road stretching into nowhere. The town faded, replaced by desolate dirt tracks, and I realized we were alone. My pulse raced. Roy wasn't just nosy, he was dangerous. I started to get uneasy and creeped out, my mind racing. Where was he taking me? Why the gun? Ashwood wasn't just a rough neighborhood. It was a trap, and Roy was leading me deeper. I had to stay sharp, or I might not make it back. The road twisted into the wilderness, trees swallowing the light. Roy's silence was deafening, his earlier Chatter gone. We get to a little creek. Luckily, there was another truck there, a small relief in the desolation. The creek was quiet, the water dark, but Roy's demeanor shifted. His eyes darted, his posture tense. A woman with a dog emerged, her hand on a holster. "For snakes," Roy said, but she smirked, lifting her shirt to reveal her own gun. "I'm not worried." They exchanged words, Roy's confidence fading, his voice clipped. I start to get uneasy and creeped out, the scene surreal, like I'd stumbled into a secret. The woman left, her truck kicking up dust, and Roy's gaze lingered, his hand brushing the holster. "Time to go," he muttered, but his tone was off, like he'd been caught. My heart pounded. Why here? What was he planning? As we drove back, I broke the silence, rambling about my move to keep him talking. He responded curtly, his eyes flicking. "To the rear view." He walks to his car and pulls something out. Drops a holster between us, the memory of that gun now a warning. I noticed a faint hum, not from the engine but from the air itself, like something was watching. My backyard footprint flashed in my mind. Had Roy left it, or was it something else? We reached his house and I bolted, claiming errands. I just knocked the heck out of there, my mind screaming to never return. Roy wasn't just a creepy neighbor, he was part of something bigger, and Ashwood was no safe haven. I had to uncover the truth before it came for me. Back home, I couldn't shake the dread. Even after that night, I felt watched, like it was still out there waiting, the footprint a constant reminder. I installed cameras, checked locks, but the unease grew. 2 nights later, I found a note slipped under my door. "Stay out of trouble." No signature, but Roy's voice echoed in my mind. "If someone breaks into our place, that we can see them and shoot them from his room." Was it him, or someone else? I confronted Roy, keeping my distance. He denied everything, his grin too wide. He starts telling me that he can see our yard from his place, his words now a threat. That night, my camera caught a shadow moving in my yard. Not Roy, but someone, or something, else. Its form blurred, eyes glinting. The hum returned, louder, vibrating through the walls. My dog whimpered, sensing it too. This wasn't just Roy. Ashwood was alive with secrets. I dug into the town's past. Whispers spoke of a network, dealers, vigilantes, or worse, running Ashwood's underbelly. People vanished, houses stayed empty, and Roy's name came up in hushed tones. The neighborhood is filled with tweakers and the other shady types, but it was more, a darkness that watched newcomers. The note, the shadow, the hum. They were warnings, and I was the target. I wanted to leave, but the hum grew nightly, the shadow closer. I wasn't just paranoid. Something wanted me gone, and it wasn't human. I had to act, or Ashwood would swallow me whole. I'm still in Ashwood, but I'm not safe. The hum haunts my nights, the shadow lingers in my footage, and Roy's truck slows by my house too often. Even after that night, I felt watched, like it was still out there waiting, a presence that knows my every move. I found a strange symbol carved into my fence, not there before, matching ones on abandoned houses. Ashwood isn't just dangerous, it's cursed. I uncovered more missing persons, unexplained fires, all tied to this street. Roy's not the mastermind, just a cog in something bigger, something that's watched this town for years. The neighborhood is filled with tweakers and the other shady types, but they're not the real threat. The hum, the shadow, the symbol, they're part of a secret Ashwood guards, one I'm too close to unraveling. Last week, my camera caught Roy at my gate holding something, a key, glinting in the dark. I'm not saying it's a cult or a ghost, but Ashwood isn't what it seems. I just not pee the heck out of there, but I can't escape. If you move to a quiet town, watch your neighbors. Check your yard. Lock your doors. Whatever's here, it's still hunting and it knows your name. What is it? A crime ring, a curse, or something older buried in Ashwood's bones? Drop your thoughts below. If you felt eyes on you in a new town, I need to know. Because every night I hear that hum, and I'm terrified it's coming for me. The clock froze at 3:33 a.m., its second hand twitching backward, like time itself was unraveling. I stood in my living room, breath caught, as a white shape drifted past the window, too tall, too fluid to be human. My heart pounded, but the house was silent, too silent, like it was holding its breath. That was the first night it started, but not the last. My home wasn't mine anymore. Something was living here with me, and it knew my name. I'm Claire, 31, a graphic designer renting a fixer-upper in rural Virginia. For months, my house felt off. Whispers called my name at night, soft, like they came from inside my skull. Figures appeared in doorways, vanishing when I blinked. It wasn't one event. It was a relentless haunting, growing stronger, meaner, until I couldn't deny it. Whatever was here wasn't just passing through, it was claiming me. It began in June, subtle at first. I'd catch that white shape outside, gliding past the glass, never leaving footprints. I'd check the yard, nothing but dew and silence. Then the whispers started, faint, saying, "Claire," in a voice that wasn't mine, wasn't anyone's. I'd wake up, heart racing, searching. Empty rooms. My dog Milo growled at corners, hackles up, seeing what I couldn't. I told myself it was stress, bad wiring, anything but the truth. But the truth didn't care. One night I was sketching late when a man stood in my kitchen. Tall, pale, eyes, black as voids. I screamed, but he was gone, the air cold where he'd been. My phone showed 3:33 a.m., same as every incident. I called Nate, my best friend, who thought I was losing it. "Old houses creak," he said. But this wasn't creaking. This was a siege, a series of impossible moments piling up, each one bolder, like whatever was here was testing me, waiting for me to break. I wasn't imagining it. I wasn't alone. And the worst was yet to come. The whispers grew louder. No longer just my name, but phrases. Stay, watch, mine, echoing from walls, floors, even my mirrors. I'd catch that white shape nightly now. Not just outside, but inside. Hovering at the edge of my vision, gone when I turned. Milo stopped sleeping, pacing, barking at nothing. The haunting wasn't random. It was deliberate, a calculated assault. Like the house itself was alive, conspiring against me. I tried to document it. My phone recorded static where the voices should have been, but photos showed smudges, pale, humanoid, in corners of rooms. One night, a figure appeared again. Not the man, but a woman. Her face blurred, standing at my bedside. I froze, unable to scream as she leaned closer, her breath cold, then vanished. The clock, 3:33 a.m., always. I called Nate again, begging him to stay over. He saw nothing, but his phone died and he admitted the house felt wrong. I started sleeping with lights on, but they'd flicker, sometimes dying completely. The air turned heavy, pressing on my chest, like something was sitting there. Milo began hiding under the couch, whimpering. I found scratches on my doors, shallow, precise, not from claws. Neighbors noticed too. Rebecca, across the street, asked why my lights were on at 3:33 every night. "I see that glow," she said, uneasy. She'd seen the white shape too, gliding past her fence, but never told anyone, scared of sounding crazy. I couldn't work, couldn't think. The siege intensified. Objects moved, mirrors fogged with no steam. Voices now screamed my name in the dead of night. I'd wake to footsteps circling my bed, no one there. Nate suggested a priest, but I wasn't religious. I needed answers, not prayers. Rebecca shared a rumor. My house was built on land tied to an unsolved murder. A woman, 1950s, found dead in the woods nearby, case buried. Was it her, or something else using her pain? The house wasn't just haunted, it was possessed, and I was its target. Every night I braced for the next attack, knowing it was coming, knowing it wanted me to see it. I couldn't live like this. The haunting was a war, and I was losing. Voices screamed, "Claire," nightly. White shapes danced in every window. And figures materialized. Man, woman, sometimes child, vanishing at 3:33 a.m. I dug into the murder rumor, scouring local archives. The 1950s case was real. Jane Doe stabbed, left in the woods behind my lot. No suspect, no closure, just whispers of a cover-up. Her photo was missing, but the land, my land, was cursed, locals said. I posted on X asking about my house. Responses flooded in. Former tenants, neighbors, even a retired cop. All reported the same phenomena. White shapes, whispers, figures vanishing. A woman who lived here in '98 said her daughter saw a lady in white in the attic, begging to be seen. The cop investigated a disturbance in '75. Screams, no source. My house wasn't just haunted. It was a beacon, drawing something that wouldn't rest. Nate and I searched the attic, finding a locked box under floorboards, rusted, etched with symbols I didn't recognize. Inside, a locket, a woman's photo, Jane, and a journal. Pages torn, scrawled with, "She watches, she waits." My bite from last week's Ouija scare throbbed as if it knew. Was Jane trapped here, or was something using her? The siege continued. Mirrors cracked. Voices now sang, eerie in unison. At 3:33, Milo ran away and I didn't blame him. Rebecca joined us, sharing her own X-find. A 1920s land deed linking my property to a ritual site where locals called things that never left. We tried a cleansing. Salt, sage, chants, it backfired. Figures appeared en masse, crowding the living room, their eyes glowing, whispers roaring, "Mine!" We fled to Rebecca's, but the white shape followed, gliding past her window. This wasn't one ghost. It was a legion tied to the land, the murder, the house. I wasn't just a tenant. I was their focus, and they weren't letting go. I moved to Rebecca's, but the haunting followed. White shapes pressed against her windows. Whispers chanted my name, now in chorus, shaking the walls. Nate's car wouldn't start. Its dashboard stuck at 3:33. The entities weren't bound to my house. They were bound to me. I kept the locket, its photo, Jane's, burning my hand when I touched it. The siege was personal, a relentless hunt, and I was running out of places to hide. We contacted a local historian, Ellen, who confirmed the ritual site. In the 1920s, a cult used my land to summon watchers, entities that fed on grief, fear, pain. Jane's murder in '53, Ellen said, was no coincidence. Her death fed them, anchoring them here. My house, built later, was their prison, and their stage. The figures, white shapes, voices, they were watchers, and Jane's pain gave them power. My presence, my fear, was their fuel. Ellen tried a banishing ritual at my house with iron, blood, and chants. The air screamed, figures swarmed, their faces, Jane's, others, twisting in agony, whispers howling, "Stay!" The locket burned, splitting open, revealing a carved symbol matching the attic box. We ran, but the white shape chased us, gliding across the street, unstoppable. X-posts exploded. Locals reported shadows, voices, figures in their homes all near my street. The haunting was spreading. a plague unleashed by my house. I found a journal page in my bag, not mine, scrawled with, "She waits, she sees, she takes." The bite mark from the Ouija flared, glowing like the white shapes. I saw Jane's face in mirrors, her eyes pleading, then predatory. Was she a victim or their leader? Nate stopped sleeping. Rebecca saw figures in her yard, and I felt them inside me, whispering, clawing. The house wasn't the trap. I was, and the watchers were closing in. Every night at 3:33 the world warped, and I knew they'd never stop. I'm still running, crashing at motels, but the watchers follow. White shapes linger in windows. Voices scream my name. Figures flicker in hallways, always at 3:33. The locket's gone, burned in a desperate ritual, but the haunting's stronger, clawing into my dreams, my thoughts. I'm not safe, and neither is my town. This isn't one ghost. It's a legion spreading like a virus, and I'm patient zero. X is ablaze with reports, shadows, whispers, figures across Virginia, all tied to my street. A kid found a waxy mark, like my bite, on her arm. A pastor reported screams at the ritual site, 3:33 a.m. Nate's missing, Rebecca's hiding, and Ellen's digging for a way to end it. My house is a lie, a gateway to something ancient, hungry, that Jane's death woke. I'm hunted, marked by eyes that never blink, voices that never tire. Here's what keeps me up. I didn't just move into a haunted house. I opened its cage. If you've seen a white shape, heard your name in the dark, felt time slip at 3:33, drop it in the comments. I need your stories. And if you're in Virginia, if you know the Watchers, tell me. Huge thanks to my Patreon crew for keeping this alive. Want more chills? Smash that subscribe button, hit the bell. And if you hear your name at night, don't answer. Because some things don't haunt, they claim. You've heard them all. 15 stories. 15 cracks in the wall between what's real and what watches from the other side. And now that it's over, ask yourself, does the room feel different? Look around. Has the silence changed? Does feel like something is waiting for you to move? Sometimes listening is all it takes. A story gets into your head, and something else follows right behind it. Maybe nothing happens tonight. Maybe it'll be days before you notice it. But when it comes, when the feeling returns, you'll know it started here. And this is only the beginning. There are more stories, deeper ones. Stories people were too afraid to tell, but we will, so subscribe. Turn on notifications, and come back if you're ready for what comes after the silence.